Hello everybody, my name is Joanna, I'm the Polish folk witch, and today I'm coming to you with another installment of the Ask a Folk Witch series of videos where I answer your questions specifically pertaining to my folk witch practice, which is rooted in the Polish culture. And so these questions have been sitting in my NGL inbox for a while because they were originally meant to be a one large Q&A video, but because many of the questions were actually so in depth that I figured I was unable to properly answer them in a format like that, I decided to turn it into a series like this instead. So here we are, and this is the second video. The previous one is going to be linked below if you would like to check that out as well. And today we are going to be talking about the devil, which is a exciting topic for me personally. So let's just jump straight to the question and go for it. So the question is, how did you start working with the devil? Did you receive signs or was it a deliberate choice of yours? I think this is a cool question to ask because I know many witches have their own kind of origin story around this. And for a moment I was debating whether or not I should maybe let people know that I'm going to be covering the topic of the devil. If you would like to maybe ask some more questions around this to talk about it more broadly. But then I figured maybe this story deserves to have kind of like a storytelling video of its own. And if this topic is of interest, I could maybe go into it in more depth in potential future videos. That said, I just need to quickly preface everything that I'm going to be talking about in this video that it's my personal experiences. A lot of it is personal gnosis, UPG, which means that this is not something that can be confirmed by somebody from the outside. You know, this is not like facts. This is just me and my personal experience, and it's not up for debate. And if you are the kind of person who's maybe more interested in historical facts or maybe historical aspects of Polish folk magic specifically, this might not exactly be a video for you. Although if you are open-minded enough, you might find some bits and pieces interesting as they seem to be very similar to some of the facts of the Polish witches trials that kind of align with my experiences. So please decide for yourself if this video is for you or not. If anybody is going to be sharing any hate or criticism below, I will have to ban you straight away. This is, as I said, nothing for debate here, okay? So that out of the way, this question has two components. So first of all, how did you start working with the devil? And did you receive signs or was it a choice? And I have to say both. This is a complex story. So I will try to tell it as it was, in hopes that maybe some folks can relate. And I know that some people can relate to this because I've been speaking to other witches and practitioners who also work with the devil over the years. And some things just seem to show up in a similar way for many of us, which is also interesting in and of itself. But no matter how crazy it sounds, I guess I'm just going to go for it. The thing is that my first encounter with the devil was when I was only 3 years old. I awoke in the middle of the night and saw the devil himself, and he was very much alive and very much moving and smiling at me. I will skip the details because I don't think this type of platform is the place to talk about these things in more depth. I am more happy to talk about this in more depth on my Patreon or in more private spaces, right? But yeah, that was my first encounter. I was horrified. I was a tiny child at the time. And since then, now I understand it much better than I did back then, obviously, and for many years, just due to access to knowledge and perspective that comes with age and life experience. But I think that that moment in time when I first encountered the devil opened a lot of doors for me, many of which were not pleasant for a child to be experiencing, namely seeing spirits, encountering spirits, encountering experiences of what you would term, or I guess compare with spirit flight or involuntary dream-like experiences that would be happening at night with the presence of spirits of various kinds, and also this, I suppose, permeating presence of the devil, which I felt in the household where I grew up since I was around 3, until I moved out when I went to university and I started my own adult life. So all of my life growing up in that household, since that point on, I felt the devil's presence in that house. I felt that he was present in the walls specifically, and that his main place of dwelling was in the basement. And I knew he was there. I could feel him. And I've had experiences over the years that would reinforce that perception of the situation. And even as an adult, when I wasn't living in that place anymore, there still came a time, and at that point I kind of started practicing the occult, broadly speaking, when I was about 16 years old. And then later on in my adult life, at some point I knew I needed to do something about this whole devil thing, and I faced him, and that was really interesting. So at that point in my practice, I wasn't actively, working with the devil. I never chose to have any contact with the devil or any of those spirits that I was encountering since that initial encounter. But I feel like that's what started me on the path of witchcraft. And there's a lot that could be said about, the perceptions of a child, consent, matters of the, I suppose, emotional makeup of a child when your nervous system isn't, fully matured yet, and all of that shit. We could be talking about this and dissecting it into pieces for absolute hours, and I'm aware of that. I'm a psychologist, so things like this are also intimately familiar to me from a more, I suppose, scientific perspective, which I don't appreciate in this context unless it's work related for me. So all those kind of tropes, I guess, aside, the moment I realized that the meaning, I suppose, of all those previous experiences was when I started digging into more traditional forms of witchcraft and folkloric magic, because prior to that, I was mostly practicing, occult, broadly speaking, chaos magic, and aspects of Slavic paganism, none of which really were immersed in and with the concept of the devil. So when I started researching traditional witchcraft, Polish folk magic, and specifically when I got very, very interested in researching the Polish witch trials, I started noticing that many of my experiences that I had over the years aligned with what was documented from the witch trials, from some, accounts of folkloric witches or just, common folk basically, and how they experienced the devil, what was very common to be happening to people who encountered him or worked with him in some way. At that point, I suppose I understood the meaning of this whole thing for me as a practitioner, for my development as a human being, for myself as a witch. And when I embraced the more traditional path, that is also when I understood it to not exactly be a coincidence, that it was a initiatory experience, and that led me onto the path of actually choosing it for myself, now equipped with knowledge and understanding of what this was about, what this was entailing, what was the meaning of all of this, and how to go about this in a way that makes sense for me and is consensual from my side, and more rooted in proactively incorporating having a relationship or allyship with this entity in my craft, in my practice. But that was many, many years later, right? So this is, I suppose, like an origin story to what got me started on my path as a witch. And now I know that there's many discussions, especially in the traditional witchcraft circles, about witch blood and all those cringy concepts of being chosen and special. I would really like to avoid inserting myself in that type of narrative personally. I understand why people approach it this way, because many of my experiences around the devil would also align with that. But I don't think it's particularly healthy to approach it that way, and I don't need it personally to feel validated as a practitioner, to feel confirmed somehow, or like my experience is more valid than other people's, especially those who, nothing in particular started them on this path. They weren't born witches or chosen to be witches. They just chose at some point in their life, okay, I'm going to be a witch, and studied this and start practicing. I think it's not for me to judge these things, to decide who's better or more legit. I just really like to avoid this type of discourse, because I think it's very divisive and goes against how I perceive these things to work, basically. So make of all of what I'm saying here what you will, but please respect my personal experience, because this is, again, not something that's up for debate. And nowadays I have been practicing in the more traditional vein for years at this point, also as an animist, and the figure of the devil is very prominent, very important in my craft. This is not something that I talk about in depth publicly, or at least not something I have talked about publicly in depth so far for reasons. But I think if this is of interest, if sharing my experience, my perspectives on this could be helpful to anybody, I'm also open to share some of those things or answer some questions about my perceptions, about how it's actually working in practice, how I go about things. I guess if there's questions, I will see which ones I can answer, basically, and go from there. So if you have a question for me in regards to this whole working with the devil thing, you are welcome to leave those questions below, and I will see which ones I feel called to address and in which format. So as usual, this video is available in advance for all my patrons. and it will be released publicly later on. If you are watching this on my public YouTube channel, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed to my channel, because I see the statistics and I see that over 40% of my viewers aren't subscribed to my channel, which is just a crazy amount, and it would help me greatly. It's free to subscribe to a YouTube channel, so if you enjoy my content, please consider that. If you enjoy my content a lot and would also like to support me in my book writing and see much more in-depth content from me and work with me personally, you are also welcome to subscribe to my Patreon, where you get access to much more than in the public spaces that I run. So anyway, hope this was helpful or inspiring or thought-provoking or whatever in any way. Hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully see you around soon. Bye.